It was just another Tuesday morning, coffee brewing, traffic jam starting to build, kids rushing out the door with half-eaten toast. Nobody expected anything unusual. Not that day. Not ever, really. Life on Earth had settled into a rhythm of small dramas, endless notifications, and the quiet hum of people trying to get through the day without losing their minds. But out in the cold silence of space, something big was happening. The Galactic Concord of Xylos, a group of civilizations from faraway star systems, had finally made up their minds. After years of monitoring Earth's chaotic behavior, they decided enough was enough. Humanity had broken too many cosmic rules, polluting their own planet like it was disposable, ignoring universal treaties they'd never even heard of, and generally acting like the galaxy revolved around them, which, to be fair, they kinda did. So, at precisely 8:17 a.m. Coordinated Universal Time, the Concord sent a message. Not a secret signal or a coded whisper. This was a full formal declaration of war, broadcast across every satellite, deep space antenna, and even some old-school radio telescopes still listening to the stars. The message came through crystal clear, translated into over 200 languages, complete with shimmering holographic symbols and a calm, dignified voice explaining that Earth was now an official enemy of the Galactic Concord. But here's the thing, nobody was really paying attention. At that exact moment, a famous actor was live-streaming himself trying to cook pancakes and failing spectacularly. The video had already gone viral. Millions were watching the batter spill everywhere, laughing at his confused expression, sharing clips with captions like relatable chaos. The alien transmission? It popped up as a weird glitch in the corner of the screen for about 3 seconds before the stream auto-corrected and went back to pancake disaster. A few people did notice. An amateur astronomer in rural Chile saw the signal spike on his homemade receiver and posted about it on a niche forum. A late-night podcast host who usually talked about government cover-ups played the audio during his show, calling it the real deal. But by sunrise, the story had already been drowned out. News networks gave it a quick mention during the 9 a.m. update. Strange signal from space sparks online rumors. But they spent more time debating whether the celebrities' burnt pancakes were a metaphor for modern parenting. Social media exploded, sure, but not with fear or urgency. Instead, people photoshopped the Xylosian ambassador, a tall iridescent being with 6 eyes and flowing robes made of light, into memes. One showed him holding a World's Best Invader mug. Another had him side-eyeing Earth like a disappointed teacher. Alien drama started trending, but mostly because someone made a dance move called the Invasion Shuffle. Even scientists who confirmed the signal was real couldn't get anyone to take it seriously. One researcher gave a calm interview explaining that the message used physics-defying compression and originated from a star system 40 light-years away. The interviewer nodded politely, then cut to a segment about a new dating app that matched people based on their pizza toppings. Governments? They held briefings behind closed doors. A few defense ministers exchanged worried glances, but with elections coming up, inflation rising, and a major sports final that weekend, no one wanted to sound alarmist. Probably a hoax, said one official off the record. Or a prank by that tech billionaire who's been launching satellites shaped like emojis. Meanwhile, life went on. People argued about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Someone's dog became famous for barking at a drone. A teenager in Mumbai posted a 15-second video of rain falling on a tin roof that got 2 million likes. The world kept spinning, blissfully unaware, or maybe just unwilling to care, that an actual interstellar empire had just declared war on them. Even the people who believed it found ways to shrug it off. If aliens are coming, said one guy on a bus scrolling through memes, at least they'll fix our Wi-Fi. Another joked that maybe the aliens would cancel student debt. A teacher tried to use the news as a classroom discussion topic, but half the students were watching the pancake video under their desks. The Xylosians, watching from light years away through their advanced observation arrays, were confused. Their entire war doctrine was built on the idea that intelligent species would respond to threats with strategy, fear, or at least acknowledgement. But Earth was too busy arguing about a new soda flavor and whether a certain pop star lip-synced her concert. Back on the planet, the original transmission was already being remixed into lo-fi beats. Someone turned the ambassador's voice into an ASMR track, A clothing brand released Galactic War hoodies with cartoon spaceships and peace signs. The whole thing felt less like the start of an interstellar conflict and more like the latest internet trend. Flashy, fleeting, and forgotten by lunchtime. By noon, the top search terms were best pancake recipe, how to get verified on social media, and why is my phone battery dying so fast? The alien war declaration? It had dropped off the trending list entirely, and so, as the first Xylosian warships began their slow journey toward the solar system, engines humming with ancient energy, crews trained for battle, minds focused on cosmic justice, Earth carried on as if nothing had changed, because to most people nothing had. There were bills to pay, shows to binge, and lives to live. The galaxy could wait, after all, it always had. A week passed. The strange alien message hadn't completely vanished, it just got buried under the usual avalanche of daily life. But then something shifted. A team of independent scientists, the kind who still checked deep space frequencies for fun, released a detailed analysis. They confirmed it. The signal wasn't a prank, a glitch, or some billionaire's publicity stunt. It was real. It came from far beyond our solar system, and yes, it really was a declaration of war that got people's attention. For about a day. Suddenly, news channels couldn't ignore it anymore. Headlines flashed across screens. Aliens declare war, are we ready? Talk shows brought on experts who spoke in calm, serious tones about defense protocols and interstellar law. A few governments held emergency meetings. One country even activated its Space Threat Response Unit, which turned out to be 3 people in a basement with a whiteboard and a very outdated satellite map. For a brief moment, there was real fear. Grocery stores saw a small but noticeable rush on canned beans, bottled water, and batteries. Survival blogs got a sudden spike in traffic. Someone in a small town built a backyard bunker out of old shipping pallets and posted a time-lapse video that got 500,000 views. People started asking each other, half joking, if the aliens show up tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd do? Answers ranged from hug my dog to finally tell my boss what I really think, but then life happened. Right as the panic was building, the stock market took a sharp dip. Economists started warning about a possible recession. Suddenly, people weren't thinking about alien armadas. They were worried about rent, layoffs, and whether their side hustle would survive the next quarter. The news cycle pivoted hard. One evening, a major streaming service dropped a long-awaited series that everyone had been waiting for. Within hours, social media was flooded with hot takes, fan theories, and outrage over a character's unexpected fate. The alien war? Barely a footnote. Even the memes started to fade. What was once a fresh joke became old news. People moved on to the next viral trend. A dance challenge involving laundry baskets. A photo of a cat that looked exactly like a famous historical painting. A rumor that a new smartphone could charge itself using moonlight. It couldn't, but the rumor spread anyway. By the weekend, a new poll came out. It showed that while 68% of people had heard about the alien war, most didn't believe it was real, or at least not serious. Some thought it was a distraction cooked up by politicians. Others figured it was part of an elaborate marketing campaign for a new sci-fi movie. A surprising number believed it was just an advanced form of spam, like those emails claiming you've won a lottery in a country you've never heard of. Meanwhile, the Xylosians kept trying. They sent follow-up messages, more detailed, more urgent. One explained their reasons in simple terms. Earth's pollution was disrupting cosmic energy flows. Another offered a peaceful surrender option, with conditions like reducing emissions and stopping all nuclear testing. But Earth's communication systems weren't built for diplomacy with alien empires. Most of the messages landed in automated spam folders. One got flagged by a cybersecurity algorithm as suspicious phishing content and was deleted before anyone saw it. Back on the ground, daily routines swallowed the crisis whole. Parents packed school lunches. Delivery drivers raced against the clock. Office workers stared at spreadsheets, wondering if they'd ever feel excited about their jobs again. A street musician played a sad song on a rainy corner, and no one noticed the headline scrolling on a nearby digital billboard. Alien fleet confirmed en route. Even those who believed it found ways to normalize it. Well, someone said while waiting in line for coffee, if they're coming, they're coming. I've got a dentist appointment at 3, I can't reschedule that. Another person joked that maybe the aliens would bring better health care. Someone else pointed out that if Earth was going to end, at least they'd finally finish that Netflix series they'd been putting off. Schools didn't change their lesson plans. Offices didn't hold emergency drills. Airports kept running as usual. The world didn't stop, it never does. There's always another bill, another deadline, another notification pulling you back into the present. And honestly, for most people, the idea of an alien war felt too big, too distant, too unreal. It was like hearing about a storm on the other side of the planet. You feel bad for the people there, but you still need to walk the dog and do the laundry. The human brain isn't wired to panic about things it can't see, touch, or immediately affect, especially when your phone is buzzing with texts. Your boss just sent a last-minute email, and your favorite food delivery app is offering free fries. Even the few who tried to sound the alarm found themselves talking to an empty room. A community group organized a prepare for contact meeting. 12 people showed up. Half of them left early because their kids had soccer practice. The local news covered it for 30 seconds before cutting to a story about a lost puppy being reunited with its owner. A much happier ending, and way more shareable. Out in space, the Xylosian fleet continued its journey. Their ships moved slowly but steadily, powered by technologies Earth couldn't even imagine. On board, commanders reviewed battle plans, ran simulations, and prepared for resistance. They expected cities to fortify, armies to mobilize, leaders to plead or fight. What they didn't expect was silence, not fear, not defiance, just nothing. Back on Earth, a teenager uploaded a video titled "What I'd Say to Aliens If They Landed in My Backyard." It got 1 million views in a day, not because people were scared, but because the kid used funny voices and had a pet parrot that squawked during the dramatic parts. The comments were full of jokes and heart emojis. No one mentioned war. By Sunday night, the alien threat had slipped into the background noise of modern life, somewhere between climate reports and political scandals. People weren't ignoring it out of bravery or denial. They were just busy living, and in a world that never stops moving, even the end of the world has to wait its turn. So while the stars held a silent, approaching danger, Earth kept doing what it always does, scrolling, working, loving, arguing, hoping, and forgetting, sometimes all in the same breath. The war had been declared, but humanity? Humanity had already moved on to the next thing. A month had passed since the alien message first crackled through Earth's airwaves, and by now, the whole thing felt like yesterday's news, like a weird dream you can't quite remember. But someone had to do something. At least that's what a small group of officials thought, so they created the United Earth Defense Coalition, or UEDC for short. It sounded impressive, like something out of an old sci-fi movie. In reality, it was a cramped office in Geneva with 3 laptops, a coffee machine that only worked half the time, and a Twitter account that posted vague updates like, monitoring the situation closely. They launched a global recruitment drive. Join the UEDC, the posters said. Defend Earth, be part of history. They even made a short video, grainy footage of stars, dramatic music, a voice saying, "The galaxy is watching. Will you answer the call?" It looked cool, for about 10 seconds, but signing up wasn't like joining the army or applying for a job. There was no training base, no uniform, no clear mission, just a form on a website that asked for your email, your country, and whether you'd ever built anything with your hands. Most people assumed it was a joke. Others thought it was a scam. A few genuinely interested folks filled it out, mostly engineers who'd been laid off, sci-fi fans who'd spent years building model spaceships in their garages, and a couple of people just looking for health insurance. In the end, only about 3,000 people worldwide actually signed up. To put that in perspective, that's fewer people than attend a mid-sized music festival. And most of them weren't soldiers. They were teachers, baristas, graphic designers, and one retired librarian who said she always wanted to see an alien up close. Governments, meanwhile, were stuck in endless meetings. One country wanted to send a peaceful message back. Another insisted on building laser defenses, despite having no idea how lasers that powerful would even work. A third suggested doing nothing and hoping the aliens got lost on the way. Nothing got decided. Nothing ever does when too many people have too many opinions and too little time. While world leaders argued over wording in official statements, everyday life rolled on like a river that refuses to change course. A viral video showed a baby laughing at a ceiling fan, 10 million views in a day. A new smartphone was released with a slightly better camera, and people lined up outside stores at midnight. Someone invented socks that never slip off, and suddenly, that was all anyone talked about for a week. The few who still cared about the alien threat tried to keep the conversation alive. Online forums buzzed with theories. Some said the Xylosians were just misunderstood. Others claimed they were already here, disguised as pigeons. That one didn't hold up under scrutiny. A few serious thinkers wrote long posts about humanity's responsibility to the cosmos. But those posts got 12 likes and 0 comments. Even the media had moved on. The alien war was no longer breaking news. It was now filed under weird but probably not important. Occasionally, a late-night host would joke about it. "Hey, if the aliens invade, can they fix my internet first?" And the audience would laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it felt safer to treat it like a punchline than a possibility. Out in space, the Xylosian fleet kept coming. Their ships glided silently through the void, powered by energy sources humans couldn't even name. Onboard officers reviewed Earth's latest broadcasts. They watched clips of cooking fails, dance challenges, and political debates that made no sense to them. They saw humans arguing over sports, crying over TV shows, hugging strangers during natural disasters. It confused them deeply. How could a species so capable of kindness and creativity also be so distracted? Back on Earth, a few billionaires announced their own private defense initiatives. One promised to launch a satellite shield within a year. Another said he'd build an escape ship for essential humans, but their announcements were quickly overshadowed. One got caught in a scandal about fake AI art. Another's rocket test exploded on the launch pad, and the whole thing became a meme before the smoke had cleared. The UEDC tried to stay relevant. They held a live Q&A. Only 200 people tuned in. Half of them were asking if the job came with free snacks. They posted a job listing for Interstellar Communications Liaison. The top applicant listed watched all Star Trek series twice as their main qualification. Schools didn't teach kids about cosmic diplomacy. Parents didn't talk to their children about what might happen if the sky suddenly filled with strange ships. Instead, people focused on things they could control: getting a promotion, fixing a leaky faucet, planning a weekend trip. Because in the end, that's what humans do. They live in the now. Not because they're careless, but because the now is all they've ever really had. Even those who believed the threat was real found peace in small things. Watching a sunset, holding someone's hand, finishing a book. The idea of an alien war was too big, too far away, too strange to fit into the rhythm of daily life. So they tucked it into a mental drawer labeled "maybe later" and went back to making dinner. And so, while the galaxy held its breath, Earth kept breathing in its own quiet, messy, beautiful way, unprepared, unorganized, and utterly human. The war was coming. But humanity? Humanity was just trying to get through the week. By the time the Xylosian fleet was just 2 light years from Earth, something unexpected started happening. Not on our planet, but on theirs. The commanders who had once stood tall in their gleaming war chambers, confident in their mission, were now pacing hallways lined with star maps, rubbing their temples, and asking each other the same question over and over. Are we sure this is still a war? It wasn't that Earth had fought back. It hadn't. There were no laser turrets on the moon, no secret space fleets hiding behind Mars, no last-minute peace treaties signed in a panic. In fact, Earth had done almost nothing. And that was the problem. From their observation decks, the Xylosians watched. They saw humans arguing about which brand of cereal tasted better. They saw someone live-streaming a walk through a forest just to listen to birds. They saw a community come together to rebuild a bakery after a fire, not because it was strategic, but because the owner had always given free bread to kids who couldn't pay. They saw joy, confusion, grief, and laughter, all tangled together like threads in a half-finished sweater. None of it made sense through the lens of war. Their entire civilization was built on order, logic, and clear cause and effect. Declare war, enemy responds. Conflict escalates or resolves. But Earth responded to a galactic declaration of war by launching a reality show where people competed to build the best treehouse. The show got higher ratings than the news segment about the alien fleet. Back on their flagship, the High Command held emergency sessions. Younger officers, Those who had grown up studying Earth's art, music, and chaotic social media began speaking up. Maybe they don't understand what war means to us, one suggested. Or maybe, another added quietly, they understand it too well and chose something else. The older leaders scoffed at first. Sentience requires awareness, they said. Awareness requires responsibility, and Earth shows neither. But doubts crept in. After all, their own laws defined a worthy adversary as a species that recognized danger and acted accordingly. So far, humanity had recognized the danger, and then gone back to watching cat videos. Meanwhile, morale on the Xylosian ship started to dip. Soldiers who had trained for decades in tactical simulations found themselves bored. There was no enemy to fight, no challenge to overcome, just silence, and the occasional bizarre Earth broadcast that made no sense. One crew member accidentally tuned into a 12-hour live stream of a man painting a rock to look like a potato. He couldn't look away. By the end, he felt oddly calm. Back on Earth, life continued its usual messy dance. A new law was passed in one country about plastic straws. In another, a street festival drew thousands who danced in the rain without caring that an alien armada was closing in. A teenager posted a poem about feeling invisible, and it went viral not because it was perfect, but because so many people felt the same way. None of it was about war. All of it was about being human. The UEDC tried one last big push. They released a final warning video, showing blurry artist renderings of Xylosian warships and a voice saying, "They're coming. Are you ready?" But the video dropped the same day a beloved cartoon character was revealed to be returning in a new series. Guess which one got more attention? Even scientists who had once sounded the alarm were now shrugging. "What can we do?" one said in an interview. "We've sent messages. We've held meetings. But you can't force a planet to care." Another pointed out that Earth had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and somehow always kept going. Not through grand plans, but through small acts of stubborn kindness. And that was the strange thing. The more the Xylosians watched, the less Earth looked like a threat, and the more it looked like a puzzle they couldn't solve. How could a species so brilliant at creating music, stories, and bridges also be so terrible at taking care of itself? How could they invent the internet but still argue about whether the Earth was round? How could they ignore an alien war fleet while organizing food drives for neighbors they'd never met? The fleet's chief philosopher, a being who rarely spoke but whose words carried weight, finally broke his silence. "Perhaps," he said, his voice like wind through crystal trees, "we came here expecting an enemy. But what if we found something else entirely? A species not at war with us, but at war with its own attention span." That idea spread through the fleet like a quiet current. Soldiers started questioning their mission. Engineers wondered if their weapons were even necessary. Diplomats who had been sidelined began drafting new messages. Not demands, but questions. Why do you laugh when you're sad? Why do you build things you know won't last? Why do you keep planting gardens when you know storms will come? None of these messages were sent, not yet, but the fact that they were being written at all was a sign that something had shifted. On Earth, no one noticed any of this. A new coffee shop opened downtown. Someone found a lost wallet and returned it with all the cash still inside. A group of kids built a robot out of old toys and entered it in a school fair. These weren't heroic acts in the traditional sense. No medals were given, no headlines written. But they were real, and they kept happening every single day, regardless of what floated in the sky above. The Xylosians, for the first time in their long history, faced a crisis not of strategy, but of meaning. Was it honorable to wage war on a species that didn't even know it was at war? Was it just to destroy a world that kept creating beauty even while falling apart? As their ships drifted closer to the edge of the solar system, the fleet slowed. Not because of engine trouble, but because the commanders couldn't agree on what to do next. The war drums had fallen silent. In their place was something far more unsettling: doubt. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the flagship, a young officer saved a clip of a human grandmother, teaching her grandchild how to fold paper cranes. He watched it 3 times. Then he whispered so softly no one heard, "Maybe we're the ones who don't understand." Earth, of course, remained blissfully unaware. The sun rose. The buses ran. People fell in love, got frustrated, made mistakes, and tried again. The galaxy held its breath. But humanity? Humanity just kept breathing, uneven, imperfect, and utterly alive. The day the Zelosian fleet finally arrived in Earth's orbit, the planet didn't even notice their ships, vast, silent, shimmering like liquid metal under the sun, slid into position around the planet with the grace of falling leaves. No explosions, no dramatic fanfare, just a quiet presence hanging in the sky like a question no one had thought to ask. Down below, life went on exactly as it had for weeks. A delivery driver missed a turn and cursed under his breath. A student stared out a classroom window, daydreaming about summer. Someone posted a photo of their lunch with the caption "Best sandwich ever" and got 47 likes. The news that morning was about a local park getting new swings and a minor scandal involving a weather app that kept predicting snow in July. The Xylosians waited. They sent a final message. A clear, calm, holographic projection beamed directly into every major satellite network. It showed their ambassador, robes glowing softly, eyes full of something that looked almost like sadness. "We have come," the message said, "to receive your answer." But Earth had no answer to give. A few people saw the strange lights in the sky and filmed them. Most assumed it was a new satellite launch, a drone show, or another one of those atmospheric phenomena scientists always talked about. One person joked online that aliens had finally arrived just in time for the weekend sale at the electronics store. The post got shared thousands of times. The UEDC, the tiny underfunded office that had barely survived on instant noodles and hope, tried to respond. They sent a signal back using the best equipment they had, which was basically a repurposed radio telescope and a laptop held together with duct tape. The message was simple: "We see you. What do you want?" The Zelosians received it. They read it. And then, for the first time in their history, they hesitated. Over the next 3 days, they watched. They listened. They scanned every broadcast, every social feed, every radio frequency. What they found wasn't defiance or fear. It was normalcy. People arguing about recipes, kids laughing in playgrounds, a street musician playing an old song for spare change, a couple holding hands on a park bench saying nothing, just being together. There was no global panic, no last stand, no grand speech from a world leader. Just billions of small lives, unfolding quietly, as if the fate of the species wasn't hanging in the balance. Back on the flagship, the High Command gathered one last time. The mood was heavy, not with anger, but with something closer to disappointment. Not in humanity, but in themselves. They had come expecting a war. Instead, they'd found a species too busy living to notice it was supposed to be fighting. One elder finally spoke. "War requires two sides," they said. "But Earth has only given us one, silence wrapped in distraction. How can we declare victory over a world that doesn't know it lost?" Another added, "Perhaps they never accepted the rules of the game to begin with." After hours of debate, the decision was made not by vote but by a shared feeling that had grown in every officer's heart. This wasn't right. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like shouting at a dream. So without fanfare, without warning, the Xylosians began to leave. Before they went, they did one small thing. They accessed the Voyager archive, a digital time capsule floating in deep space, filled with sounds and images of Earth from centuries ago. Into it, they added a single file, a short note written in plain text, translated into every major human language. It read, "Your species appears preoccupied. We shall return in 10,000 cycles. Please try to care by then." Then, as quietly as they'd arrived, their ships turned and vanished into the starry dark. Back on Earth, the strange lights in the sky faded by dawn. Most people assumed it was a glitch, a weather balloon, or maybe just their eyes playing tricks. A few conspiracy forums buzzed for a day or two, but interest died quickly when a celebrity announced they were opening a vegan bakery. The UEDC shut down a week later. Their final tweet read, "Mission concluded. Thanks for believing." No one replied. Life returned to its usual rhythm. The stock market bounced back. A new song topped the charts. Someone invented a phone case that changed color when you were stressed. People argued, loved, worked, rested, and scrolled, just like always. No one held a memorial for the war that never happened. No one celebrated the peace they didn't know they'd been given, because to them nothing had changed. The sky was still the sky. The coffee still tasted the same. The world kept turning, and yet something had shifted. just not in the way anyone expected. In the weeks that followed, small things began to happen. A community garden that had been struggling suddenly got dozens of volunteers. A school started a kindness challenge where students wrote notes of appreciation for each other. A city council quietly passed a law to protect local wildlife, not because of pressure, but because someone remembered how beautiful the birds sounded at sunrise. None of it was connected to the aliens, at least not directly. But maybe, just maybe, the near miss had left a quiet echo in the human spirit, a tiny reminder that the world is fragile, strange, and worth paying attention to. Years later, when historians looked back on this time, they wouldn't call it the alien war that wasn't. They'd barely mention it at all. But in the quiet corners of human memory, in the stories told late at night or in the way someone chooses to help a stranger for no reason at all, the moment would live on, not as a battle, but as a mirror. Because in the end, the galaxy didn't need Earth to fight. It just needed Earth to care. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what humanity started doing. Not because of fear, but because deep down, they always knew how.